Thank you for finding During the Break podcast. Until we can get back into our studio consistently, we are taking the audio from our Facebook Live videos and converting them to podcasts. Great conversations, great stories, great tips, and great people. I have other podcasts as well. One's about business and leadership. You can find that at marketingmixradio.com. I have one about adventures in the great outdoors with people who are living it every day. Dayfirepodcast.com as well. Now, this podcast is sponsored locally by a good buddy of mine, Granite Garage Floors of Chattanooga. If your garage floor needs a makeover, call Dan Meninger for a free quote, 423-592-3131 or granitegaragefloors.com, Chattanooga. It's /Chattanooga. The lifetime warranty. I have known Dan for over 20 years. Trust me, there's no one I would trust with a job like this in my house. There's no one that's going to do you a better job. Garage floor, concrete porch, showroom. If it needs a makeover, call Dan Meninger at Granite Garage Floors of Chattanooga. Now, let's get to it. Enjoy During the Break podcast. What's up, Gabby Curry?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Just wonderful. Very peachy here in Atlanta, Georgia. Finally back home.
Well, thank you for jumping on with me for a short minute.
Of course. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so we tried to do this. This is why I love live broadcasts. We talked before we came on. We were going to do this when you went into the NCAA bubble. Now, I'm assuming the bubble is, and you can explain what the bubble is to folks, is it a COVID thing or has that always been the case?
Just a COVID thing. So just like the NBA, they did it in Orlando at Disney, right? So basically, anybody that was in the bubble, you had to be tested every single day, and you could only hang out with those people being tested every single day. So the NCAA called it something called a tier 1. So you could be a tier 1 person or you could be a tier 2 person. So all the tier 1 players, there were some rules basically saying, number one, you had to be tested every single day. The testing was, I can explain that if you guys want to know later, but a shit show, if we're going to be honest.
Was it really?
Oh my gosh. So we did the rapid PCRs, right? There was in the first day, like over a 3% false positive rate.
Oh,
which
wow.
I know that doesn't sound a lot, but if you are like a starter and you're wanting to help your team win the national championship and you get a false positive, you're out, right? So they definitely did have a mechanism to where if you had a positive, you would go back and do an actual PCR test. That was positive, then you would do another test. I don't know.
Right.
And if that was positive, then you're actually positive. But anyway, so that was crazy. We got tested every single morning. You had to sit on the ground on these like dots for 20 minutes. So this was an ordeal. Like you would show up and you would be there for a solid 40 minutes.
Wow.
So you would catch us laying on the ground. It was an ordeal. But anyways, so those tier 1 people, that was everybody in the bubble. And then tier 2 would be like our parents.
Right.
And our parents, we weren't allowed to be within 6 feet of them without or at all for more than 14 and a half minutes, which makes so much sense because COVID can get you after the 15 minutes. Okay.
And it knows the difference between 6 feet
100%.
and 6.5 feet. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, the bubble was just a COVID thing. Thank goodness. Hopefully they don't ever have to do that again.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question about the bubble. First of all, even if you got a test of false positive, and you were talking about in the bubble when you were there, you had to find, we were going to do it then, this podcast, but you found that you needed to really focus on your brain and your mental space and your attitude, which was, I understood, completely fine. But if you get a false positive, that's a mental hiccup.
Whew.
I mean, all of a sudden, you're not focused on the team. You're focused, am I positive? Am I not? And I guess the other question is there any benefit? I mean, you've been through these things before. Was being in a bubble, did it help the mental focus a little bit?
That's a good question. And that's something probably I'll have to reflect on as time comes. So usually how the tournament happens is that there are 16 teams who get to host the first 2 rounds, excuse me. So that means that everybody, the NCAA has to pay for all of this, by the way. So they send I think there's 64 teams in usual days. They send those 64 teams to 16 different locations.
Right.
And so then the winners out of those 16 are now going to a different location the next weekend. So then there are 4 locations that hold that. And that's usually the first, second, third, and fourth, kind of like the NCAA men's basketball.
Right.
Okay. So then after that, those winners now go to the Final Four and the championship site. So if I'm honest, I think it was an advantage for all of us to just be in the same area to where we didn't have to do all this traveling stuff. We didn't have to wait around. They did give us a prompt amount of rest time personally. There's only 2 days where they were like back-to-back matches if you were in the first 16. So we actually got to buy the first round, which is nice.
Yeah.
And those were a little hard, but then after that, they gave us 2 rest days. So I think they did it really well. I think it was ran as well as possible. I'm a type of person where if I can't change something, I'm not going to complain about it. So I completely understand. You guys obviously know the whole debacle about the women's basketball kind of going at the NCAA's neck for the space we're working out and food and things like that.
Right.
Completely understand. That was absurd. Shouldn't have happened. And so they voiced their opinions and things were changed. So cool with that. I am on the other side to where, number one, I understand capitalism and I understand economics, right? And I'm okay with that. That's how life is. Like, you have to be okay with that. Okay, number one. But number two, the NCAA is not purposely, in my opinion, trying to diss women in some way. You know, it's not personal. So I'm at a point where, like, I've talked to a couple of the NCAA people, and I'm like, I'm one of the few that I know you guys are doing the best you guys can, you know? So I'm not going to complain that you guys aren't.
Well, you know, life is full of walking thin lines, you know, self-care versus selfish, growing my business versus being too greedy. I mean, life is just full of thin lines. And I'm a big believer on we see what we look for. So I think if there are real complaints that need to be addressed, if you voice them and you do it as a group, that's fine. But if all you ever see are injustices, or if all you ever see are things to complain about, then you're looking for that. Mm-hmm. And I actually did a podcast yesterday. We were talking about relationships, and we were both like, it's easy to find things in the people in your life that you don't like. But if you actually make it a point every day to look to find ways to tell somebody they're doing a good job, you'll be amazed at how much more positivity you're surrounded around. So I agree with you. You look at what you can change and what you can't. You just kind of go, I can't.
Right, exactly. And then to follow up with your question, I think it was an advantage because especially, so we played in the Elite 8 in the exact same gym that we would be playing in the Final Four and the championship. Oh. So usually you're changing gyms and you have to get used to the lights and the perception and all that kind of stuff. But we played in some, honestly, crap gyms. It was kind of ridiculous. NCAA, you probably should have done better. But they did what they could, with the bubble and everything. So, but after going into the Elite 8, we went into the big arena. And so going into the Final Four, which is a huge moment, right? It felt no different. I actually looked at one of my teammates at one point and I was like, I'm kind of mad because I thought this was going to feel a lot more pressure and like a lot different, a lot more big. But I feel like we were playing the University of Arkansas right across the net, which we were not. We were playing a very good team, Washington. But it was just like another game, which probably went into how well we did.
Well, and I promise, and I put it in the description here, there's a couple of things I want to make sure we get to. And one of them, let's just start with the good elephant in the room, and that is the national championship run. Now, I was, because your mom and dad are very good at texting their friends saying, check out what my kid's doing. And
yes, they are.
And well, that's awesome. I do the same thing. I'm like, when my daughter hits a home run, everybody's getting a video of it, even though she's like, Dad, I've hit home runs before. I'm like, not this one though. Look at that one. That one's special. You know, as a dad, I understand it. But I started watching. I tried to watch the championship game, and the best I could come up with at the time, because I'm cheap. All I have is Netflix. I don't have cable. So the only thing I came up with was they had this page. Excuse me. that was getting refreshed. It was like live updates. And so I'm watching it, and then I see Texas won the first set. And I was like, and it was pretty close first set. And I was like, uh-oh. So then I go back to what, binge watching Peaky Blinders or whatever I'm watching on Netflix or whatever. And so I'm going back and I'm refreshing about every 3 minutes, refresh. And the set, I knew it was kind of the sets were getting long and competitive because normally the updates are every 5 or 10 minutes. These were going 20 minutes, 30 minutes between sets, right? And then you won. But in the description of the second set, it said Gabby Curry. So something happened mentally after the first set with the team. What happened?
That's a great question. I've actually been asked that question a couple times, which is funny because in volleyball, it's so back and forth. For anybody that doesn't know volleyball, my dad, Buddy Curry, has played a bunch of sports, watched a bunch of sports, loves all sports. but he says there's nothing like volleyball. And there's nothing like watching volleyball. The amount of intensity, anxiety you have watching, the athleticism that the girls have that are playing, it's just unlike any other. So in volleyball, it is the most back and forth sport you could probably ever
Momentum can be switched very quick.
And that's what we talk about. It takes one play to switch the momentum. We call it like a game-changing play. So to answer your question,
right,
I would say, honestly, just like the trust that we had. So I personally brought everyone in. So there were 2 leaders on our team. It was one, Madison Lilly. She was the National Player of the Year, All-American, phenomenal player, phenomenal. She was the more hoorah, like let's effing go, very not cocky, but very confident, right? Very, very confident. And I was the more supporting role, like I was saying yes, what she said all the time, but I also was saying, yo, lean in, lean in. So I was talking about from day one of the tournament, it is the coolest thing ever with this past team that we have 6 people on the court at all time. 2 of them can be messing around doing terrible. But if the other 4 are doing decent, they don't even have to do great, just good, right?
Yeah.
We're going to win. And how comforting is that? So, we get into after we lose the first set, and I'm sitting there, and we had one of our best hitters hit like 4 balls out. We're like, okay, that never happens. Then we have our freshman who kind of has to make a mistake before she starts getting going. So she had 2 mistakes. So we're like, okay, she's going to get going soon. And then our setter, the really good one, was not playing as well as she could, right? Everything just wasn't going as normal. So we sit down, and I'm like bringing everybody in. I'm like, yo, stay the course. Stay the course. We talk about this. I'm like, you don't have to play great. Our good is good enough, right? So we talk about Kentucky good, right? So there's so much pressure in, okay, I have to play great and I have to play big in these big moments. No, you have to play yourself and your level, right? And then those moments will come every other day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically I brought him in. I was just like, hey guys, lean into each other. If you need help, look at me and just say, hey, I need your support. So that way I know coming to you, let's say you make a mistake, I'm looking you in the eye and I'm saying, hey, I believe in you, or like, I need you, right? I need you to help me, or I need you to talk to me. So I think it kind of just switched there. And then we obviously knew that it's okay. We just lost a set. We're going to come back better.
You know what, though? As I'm listening to you talk, I wrote down, because I take notes during these conversations so I don't forget stuff. Again, you'll understand this, but as you get older, you'll forget things. Okay. So you got them down. First of all, I love the idea one play it can make a difference. In life, one decision can make a difference. So I try to find lessons I can pull out of these conversations. And the other is our good is good enough. In other words, if your life is only built on trying to do all the great stuff, it's hard to live up to great every single day.
Absolutely.
It's really tough. So I love those 2 lessons that you brought. So let's talk about the Gabby experience, though, from the championship. Yeah. You when we were coming on, you were like, hey, sorry, I didn't talk, we couldn't do it in the bubble, but it was great. So now that you're looking back, big, deep breath. Let's hear it. Fun, too much anxiety. Is there
crazy? Absolutely crazy. Okay, so I've told the story before, but okay, so I was an Under Armour All-American as a senior in high school. So blessed, loved the experience. So what they did pre-COVID is they would fly all of the girls out to the Final Four site, right? So the day before, so you would play a Final Four on a Thursday and then the championship on a Saturday. So we would get there on Thursday morning. We would practice with these girls that we've never played with on Thursday day, get to go to the Final Four match that night, and then we would play Friday night, okay? In the same arena in front of whoever wants to come, usually not that many people.
Right.
So I was telling my girl, and I kind of hinted to this earlier, I was telling one of my friends, I'm like, I remember sitting at the Final Four thinking, oh man, I'm so glad I'm not in that situation. That is, I can't even imagine sitting in the locker room thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go into the biggest moment of my life. Like, am I going to mess up? I'm thinking like, that is such a big moment. Every point is worth so much. And just thinking, wow, that's a lot of pressure.
Right.
And then I get in that way, or I get in that situation, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, this should feel better or bigger. Like, this just feels like another day, So for me to be able to go into a game so confident, let alone the national championship, so confident, where I actually already brought and bought presents to celebrate in the locker room.
Did you really?
Yes. Yes. My parents helped me out, but like already bought them. And I was so confident. The more film I watched on Texas, they're so good, by the way. But the more film I watched, the more confident I got, because they weren't doing anything that we had never seen before. And we were really, really good at the things that they were decent at. And they were really good at the things we were decent at. So it worked out really well. We matched up well. So going back, I just think like how blessed I am that God gave me a sense of, I guess, calmness and a sense of peace and a sense of confidence that I could just live each day and each point and each moment in complete presence, right? And being actually in the moment. And I think that's what the bubble provided us. And I honestly couldn't think of it any different.
You know, and I want to ask you about the national team too, because I want to make sure we hit all these topics. So, and this is where I'm confused. Were you on the USA national team for the Pan Am Games? And does that translate to anything else? Are you still on that team, or is that a one-time thing? How does that work, and what is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, okay, so the national team in all is kind of like an organization. So I right now am on the Olympic 40-man roster, which means that they have to give this roster to the Olympic Committee at years in advance, or a year in advance. So I'm on that. I could go to the Olympics. Am I going to go to the Olympics this summer? Absolutely not. I'm not that good yet, or what?
Right.
They already kind of have it picked, as they should. That's what I say. So what I did, they brought me out, and they do this with a bunch of girls. They pay for me to go live in Anaheim, and it's kind of like a tryout. They fill you out. Are you the type of player that I want to be in my gym? Are you that good? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I actually spent 2 summers ago the entire summer in Anaheim, California, training with the Olympic team. Now, these are the girls that are going to be on the Olympic team, and these are also the girls that aren't on the Olympic team but maybe are working towards that.
Right.
So I was gonna be a junior in college. These girls are all 28, maybe older, right? So they are obviously a lot better than I was. But I guess Karch Karai is the head coach. He saw potential. So when you go into the gym,
was he a beach volleyball guy?
He was. He played.
Yeah, I remember that.
Beach. You guys should look up his accolades. I think he has every single one.
Yeah.
If we're gonna be honest, won a bunch of gold medals and things. So when you go into the gym, you can be cut at any time. You can be sent home. So me personally, I really don't know why they kept me around, but they kept me around, and you make rosters. That's how it happens. So there are, in one summer, there could be 4 different rosters you can make, and those rosters go to different tournaments, basically. So the first roster I made was the Pan Am Cup. Okay. And so that happens every single year. And that's just like this half of, or the Western hemisphere of the world.
Right.
So everybody travels to one location. It was actually in Peru. And then you play a bunch of teams. So that one was a little bit different because we had 14 girls on that roster. So they could bring more of the older girls. So Madison, my setter, her and I went together. We didn't play. We just got to watch all of the older girls do their thing. We got to watch how USA runs their gym and all that kind of stuff. And then from that, I was selected to go to the Pan Am Games, which is different. That only happens every 4 years, and that's the year before the Olympics. So it was a mini Olympic Games. So then on that one, there were only 12 people, and then I played. So that's how that kind of works. But then after that, you could not make another roster for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Right.
You could just go and train with the team, and that be it.
Would you, I mean, is that something, because I think you walked away from, you're not going back and playing at Kentucky, right? You're done. Okay. Okay. Is that something, though, that is a goal? I mean, because I know you're a goal-oriented person, or is that something, if it happens, it happens?
That's so funny they say that. I am a very goal-oriented person, but I'm also not like a dreamer. I've never dreamed to be in the Olympics. I've never dreamed to, sorry, it's really loud. I've never dreamed to do anything extravagant, I would say. Again, I'm a more goal. So
right.
My coaches in college actually got mad at me because they were like, do you want to be like, what's your goal? And I was like, to get all A's this semester and to play.
Work out enough to where I can eat pizza.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
mine.
play,
Yeah.
I don't know. And they're like, no, you need to dream bigger. So I have foregoed an opportunity or a couple opportunities to go play professionally overseas. For anyone that doesn't know, there's one USA league for professional volleyball here in the States, and it just started last year, and it has never been a thing. So anybody that wants to play has to move overseas, get paid chump change, and then spend 9 months away from their family in hopes, or they get to travel, and it's, half empty, half full thing. Where I have a great opportunity with my job, and so I've foregoed playing overseas to take my job. So with that being said, I might try to play in the USA League. It's really different. I can explain it later, but I talked to Karch Karai, and I was just saying, if I decide to go play overseas, I will be in the gym this summer. But if not, we'll kind of like say our peace and blessings and say, I'll talk to you later.
What position do you play on the court?
It's called the libero position. So it is the person with a different colored jersey.
Mm-hmm.
That jersey doesn't mean captain, doesn't mean best player. Everybody always asks me that. It just means that I can sub in and out of the game without going through the traditional, they have to count your subs. So you only have 12 subs a game.
Gotcha. Training and recovery, and you were just working out. So I'm going to ask you a question with 2 or 3 layers. Training and recovery is pretty hard, especially when you're playing to the level you're playing. Is there anything special you guys were doing or girls were doing to recover? And you just said you were working out this morning. Do you have a favorite exercise that you like to do the most and one you hate?
Oof. Okay. So first of all, recovery. This year more than ever, our coaches gave us time off.
Oh, okay.
I think that they are understanding the fruition and actually what could happen if you are fresh as athletes, right? So we had a lot more days off, number one. Number two, we did a lot of recovery with Normatec. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's these like boot things. We did
are they the ice, the cold things like the sleeves?
That's not a game ready, but
okay.
Yes, but kind of both of those. Basically, it flushes your legs out. So
Gotcha.
We do that a lot. But other than that, I personally found that I flush my legs the best by getting on a bike. So before we would play at like 8:30, 9 p.m., I would go and I would just bike for about an hour. And that's not strenuous. It would just be flushing my legs. I would kind of be on the phone FaceTiming, trying to catch up with people around me, that type of thing. Obviously sweating. I enjoy sweating a lot. So that's what I would kind of do to recover. Training wise, we would only lift about 2 times a week while we were playing, but out of season, we would lift 4 to 5. So
do you have a favorite exercise?
Favorite exercise? Probably just like a cycle class, like a Peloton. I really like cycling.
Okay, but you're not I get bored so easy on treadmills and stuff. I have to have something. And the other thing, when you get to be my age, when I train, I have to put goals in front of me. I have to say like, okay, I'm doing this in 4 weeks, like it's a Spartan race or a boxing match, something. And do you have an exercise you hate though?
Oh man, sprinting right there.
Oh, really?
I can jog all day, but if my coach is like, all right, get on the line, we're going to do some sprints. I'm like, this is the worst thing of my life. Like, I hate this. I'm quitting tomorrow,
Suicides are not your thing. All right. Let me kind of take it a different direction. I want to ask you some questions now, and this may be where you can give some advice to some young athletes. And I'll make sure I end with that. But what makes a good, and then I'm going to ask you about a coach, a teammate, leader, and a follower. And you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, just your thoughts. What makes a good coach in your mind?
This year, a good coach empowers their players to be a power-led team. 100%. They have trust in their players. They have trained their players enough to where they trust them to take the team on by themselves, right? This past year, that's what we were. We eradicated some rules that kind of were like hover parent rules, and the seniors just took it over. So if a coach can take the responsibility from him, from like monitoring everyone and give it to the players, great coach.
If you have the right players, empowering the team. And there's a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink that I like. Have you ever heard of Jocko Willink?
I have, yes.
Okay, good. Then I won't keep moving forward with that one. How about a great teammate? What makes a good teammate?
Selfless, supportive, and do what they say they're going to do, in my personal opinion. So selfless as in always giving credit to the other person. Supportive as in always reaching out, not always, reaching out to other teammates randomly. That's a text. That's something I adopted this year. A random text to the freshmen. Hey, saw you working hard yesterday. Proud of you. Let's go win this thing. Whatever it is. Yeah. And then do what you say you're going to do. You can talk the talk any day, but your actions speak louder than words 100% of the time. People can look at you and say, you believe this, that, especially with the political whatever going on right now, injustices and conflict. They can look at you and how you believe in those things and think of you one way. But if your actions say another, they believe the actions.
Yeah. So. Well, and I'll say about politics all the time, it's easy to call Gabby or Clint something if you don't know them. Absolutely. But the way to get past all this crap in our society is get to know people, and then you'll judge them based off how they act and not what you think that meme meant that you don't know. That's stupid anyway. All right. What makes a good leader on the team? Not the coach, but a leader, like a captain. And I hate to say this, you know what I'm about to say is right probably, but just because you have a title of a captain doesn't mean you're always the leader, right? Leaders are unspoken. So what makes a good leader?
Dependability, number one, and I'm going to say selflessness. So I've learned this through a bunch of books and things like that, and obviously the Bible. If you can learn to lead, then you can lead, right? So it took me 3 years to learn to be behind somebody, or if you learn to follow. Sorry, if you can learn to follow, then you can learn to lead, right? So it took me 3 years to actually learn how to follow our leaders, figure out what they don't like or what they don't do that I like, and vice versa, and things like that. But this year I fully adopted the whole, I'm going to be dependable. I'm going to do what I'm going to say I'm going to do. But at the exact same time, I'm going to be the most giving information. If it's not about me, it's about the person next to me. If I can empower them to play better, then I'm going to play better because I'm not focusing on myself.
You kind of answered the next one by the answer for the leader one, and that's what makes a good follower. Because I think it's hard for people to understand how to be a leader if you've never actually been humble enough. And humble doesn't mean insecure or not confident. Humble is an ego thing, but how to follow is a critical role on a team, because even if you're the captain, you have to answer to somebody, and that accountability is what makes a good follower. And you said it took you 3 years. Do you think you're a better follower now that you're a leader than you were when you were a freshman?
Yes, absolutely. Can't say that enough. And I was talking about the two leaders on my team. So you have Madison, who's the more like go-getter, confident. Then you have the supporter, me. I learned to, whenever, you know how some people kind of like will compete to see who's the one leader on the team.
Yeah.
That's not me. Maybe she did a little bit, but not me. Every time she would say something, I was the first person to be like, what she said. Everybody, like, Madison said, let's effing do this or whatever it is, yes, take that and run with it. So you have to give credit. You have to follow everyone. Even if a freshman is speaking up, I'm like, yeah, what she said. You got to give everybody credit. So exactly what you're saying. I think I'm a better follower now than.
Advice to young athletes that are in high school or maybe just getting ready to go into that freshman year. Maybe they're walking on. Maybe they didn't get the scholarship. What is some advice you would give them? And then we're going to play a fun game.
Number one advice, get in the gym earlier. So my freshman year, there were 4 of us. We brought hard work to UK. So we were in the gym 30 minutes early, no matter what, every single practice to get individual reps. When you're in practice, you can't work on your individual self as much as you want to, right? So use the 30 minutes before practice to work on those reps. I think that is what made all the difference. And that right there, that is what's going to give you confidence in yourself, right? So in order to have confidence, or in order to play well, you have to have confidence in yourself and confidence in your ability. So then from there, that breeds confidence from others to yourself. And then you become dependable, and then you're the leader, and then you're the best player in the team, and then you win the national championship. So I think they kind of go in from there.
So the work ethic.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to transition now into the game, but before I do you have any embarrassing stories about your brothers, your dad, or your mom that you want to share now so that you can hold it over? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was gonna say, what out of the thousands do I want to say?
I was hoping I would get one good one from about your dad, but then I could hold it over. We'll do that offline, and that way I'll just bring it up this weekend at camp. I'll go. So what about that time?
Drop kicked my third brother and broke his wrist. Bring that one.
Oh, there you go. Hey, so I'll make your dad feel better, so he doesn't feel. So my son was probably 5, and I told him to go to bed. And I said, all right, dude, go get in your room. I said, just go get ready for bed. Maybe he was in 1st grade. I can't remember. I said, hey, man, it's time for bed. So I don't want to go to bed. We fought for 15 minutes. Finally, I picked him up, carried him in his room, put him on his bed. I said, you can sit there, or you can take off your clothes and put pajamas on, or dad will take off your clothes and put pajamas on. I don't care. It's bedtime. And my son is so much like me. And now he's 22 and, he's doing great and all this. And he's like, I'm not going to bed. And we argued. And finally, I laid him back and I grabbed his pants and I said, you're going to bed. It's time for bed. And I grabbed his pants and I jerked them off of him. Here's the problem. I didn't know they buttoned. I thought they were the elastic pants. So I slingshotted my son across the room. And he's like, Dad. And I'm like, well, looks like we're staying up and eating ice cream till 1 o'clock in the morning. We took naps and he didn't go to bed that night. We watched Barney for like 4 hours. I'm praying over him in the living room going, God, I'm sorry. I'm a bad father. We ate M&Ms in the middle of the night and Reese's Pieces. And she's like, everybody was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I've got to make up for something terrible. So your dad won't feel left out there on that. All right, here we go. We got a few more minutes. We're going to do a quick game of Would You Rather, and then I want to ask you some questions about your music. And if by some chance something happens and I have to get off quick, we've got some severe storms rolling through, and I'm watching out the window. And if it gets silly, I'm just going to say, hey, Gabby, talk to you later, and I'm going to end the broadcast.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. If you could only eat one for the rest of your life, pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
I'm disappointed in that answer, but I'll let it stand.
I was going to say French toast, but you didn't say French toast. So
oh, French toast is great. Have you ever had egg in the nest?
No.
Okay. Take a piece of bread, take the middle out, pull the middle out of it, put it in the frying pan, break an egg into the middle of it, lift the bread up so it circles under the bottom, and then cook it on both sides with some butter and syrup like you would a pancake. Get a little protein and a little carb.
You might have done something.
There you go. Onion rings, tater tots, or French fries. You can only have one for the rest of your life.
French fries for sure.
You've never had a good onion ring, lady. All right, here we go. All right, you can only go one place for vacation, the mountains or the beach.
Mountains.
There you go. Good answer.
Let's do it.
If by some chance you could go to any other school than Kentucky, would you have picked a different school? Not would you, but if Kentucky was never an option, where would your second school been?
It's funny. Georgia Tech with my brother.
I was going to say your brother went there. All right, last bit. Motivation. Do you watch different things how do you define motivation? Do you go to certain places that you pull from?
Yes. Podcasts, lots of podcasts, books. I read a lot and I journal. I give myself motivation. Yeah,
journaling. I actually I do some business coaching and I tell people journaling is good, especially if you're a salesperson. What happens is you forget what worked and you forget what didn't work and you forget your ideas. But if you just get in the habit of journaling, and it doesn't have to be Dear Diary, it just means you're writing stuff down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, music. What kind of music do you listen to when you're working out, or do you listen to podcasts instead?
No, I kind of do both, but I like a lot of music. The only music I hate is rap music. Hate pop culture, hate rap music. I do not want to be filling my brain with that vulgarness and things like that. So this is not supposed to be like a church answer, but I really, really enjoy worship music. Love worship music. And then I love country music. I love house music, which is different. But
we're going to have to get you hooked into a little AC/DC or Nazareth or Ted Nugent or some old school rock and roll to help.
I like all music. That's good.
All right. Last thing on this podcast. Do you have a favorite podcast?
Yes. It's called The Morning Mindset. So it's every single morning. Kerry Green, he just reads scripture, explains it a little bit, and does a little prayer at the end. So it sets the morning right, and you're on for your day. Are you
a very disciplined, habit-oriented person?
Yes, to an extent. I think that I'll be on it for about a week and a half, and then I'll get a little lenient, but then I will be back on it. But yes.
All right. Gabby Curry, this has been fun.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. And we'll talk later down the road. We'll see what happens. And if I can ever help, just let me know. Tell your family I said hi.
All right, I will. Thank you.
Bye, Gabby Curry. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.